for joining us. Thank you for recording. Today we're going to have the chairman of ELPAK, Mr. Frederick Odhiambo, and Constance Okwia, who are going to take us through today's session. And before we start the session, I know you've been introducing yourselves, but I just want to check in and find out how you're all doing. So maybe in the chat, in a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being 5 being happy and 1 being less happy, you can just put in the chat so that we know how to move on, and hopefully by the time we are through, you'll maybe be feeling better because of the interaction and the learning. I see Isaac says he's at 4. No, he's also at 4. That's good. Irene Josh says 4. Jen says 4. Jen, if you're here, I would like you to take over the moderation, if that's okay with you. Just let me know when you're ready to take over. Yeah. Welcome, Jen. So I'll hand this over to Jen to continue with the moderation.
Thank you very much, Rukia. Thank you, Chair, for your patience, and thank you for everyone who has joined us tonight. Thank you for your patience. As Rukia said, our speakers for tonight will be our chairman, Frederick Odhiambo, and our able treasurer, who is Constance Amanda. They will be taking us through collaborating with colleagues and other professionals to write and share assessment and feedback. And I believe it will be a very interactive session as we reflect what we have done and share what we have applied throughout this project. Thank you very much. At this point, I welcome our chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jane. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. So I hope you can see my screen. Are you able to see the screen? Okay, can they see the screen?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Try and share again.
Not yet. Okay. Let me try to share again. Can they see it now? Can you see the screen?
Let me see if I can share it from my end.
Okay, thank you. That would be great. So as we wait for Rukia to share the screen, welcome to this session. We've had our project, as I said the other time, from July up to now. And in fact, this is our major last webinar was on the 13th. And this is our last one, the very last one, where we are going to share our best assessment and feedback practices, what we've been doing using the British Council online resources. So it will be quite interactive, and we'll hear more from you, what you've been doing. And I think you'll also let us know the way forward. Yes, thank you very much. I can see. Can we see the screen, all of us now? So this is our last English Connects webinar. And in fact, we are going to share, and there are people from the chapters that will share what they have been doing. So it's writing and sharing best assessment and feedback practices. We'll be working together with Constance Okwia. You know Constance very well, our treasurer. And of course, people know me. I'm Frederick Odhiambo. I'm the chairman. Constance is the treasurer. Then we have Jane, who will be moderating the session, our assistant secretary. And we have Rukia, who will be overseeing what is happening screen and everything. Our able secretary and Tiberius also will be with us here shortly. So I'm happy to see most people from the various chapters here. So we'll have time maybe later on to introduce ourselves, but you can introduce yourself in the chat as we go on. So we're going to look at leveraging British Council online resources, but before we go on, let us look at the objective of the webinar. So our objective of the webinar today, as you can see, is to share best informal and formal assessments, share best feedback practices, to highlight the importance of collaboration among teachers and professionals, to publish successful assessments or stories in ELPAK newsletters and British Council resources. So we believe that by the end of the webinar, we'll be able maybe to achieve what we have stated in our objectives. And the last one is very important. We intend to publish the best assessments in our ELPAK newsletter and the British Council online resources. Thank you. Next slide. Why collaborate on assessment and feedback? You can put your thoughts on the chat. Why do you think we should collaborate on assessment and feedback? Why do we work with other colleagues? So I've put a few examples. Jen can read them for me.
Yes, thank you, Chair. One is ensures consistent and fair assessment, encourages shared expertise for better evaluation and feedback methods, helps teachers provide constructive and meaningful feedback to students, and promote professional growth through peer learning.
Thank you very much. So colleagues, we can now share in the chat whatever we have left out. You can also add to what we have so that we populate the list on the chat as we go on, and give you 1 minute to share in the chat, or you can unmute and just say something, or you can elaborate on the ones that you've shared on the screen. Yes, Jen, you can look at what you're saying.
Yes, we have one from Irene Kado. It says to counter check any anomalies missed out. Anomalies missed out here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Irene, for that. Yeah, let's put our thoughts in the chat. So as we still have, yes, for Irene, anomalies and errors, sharing different approaches for diversity purposes. Thank you, Emmanuel, for that. Thank you. Welcome, Rogers.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes, next slide. As we still continue, yes. Jen, you keep on reading what they are sharing in the chat. So our next slide, as Jen reads what is there, will be an overview of the British Council online resources. Where do we find more information? Because we are finishing the project, but it has been useful to us. Those who are not able, you can visit the links provided, teachingenglish.org.uk, professional development for teachers, teachingenglish.org.uk, professional development for teachers, assessing learning, and also the website africa.teachingenglish.org. You can get more information about what you've been doing. Welcome, Paul. Jen, is there anything in the chat that you want to share?
Yes, we have some more from Isaac and Catherine. Isaac says, it is the best practice when colleagues come together and share their views. Then Catherine adds, for
Yes, Jen, we've lost you. Jen, are you back?
Yes, I don't know if I'm audible. I
Yeah,
read
now you're
from
on.
Catherine and okay, I can repeat that. From Isaac says it is the best practice when colleagues come together and share their views. Then Catherine adds, for the correct choice of methodology, for the level of learners, and for the correct choice of teaching materials and resources, and for remedials.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah, keep on sharing. We move to the next slide. Yes, where do we find content? You can put in the chat. I think those photos that we have are familiar. We have covered them at one point. So if you look at the British Council online resources, where do you think you can find content for those people who interacted with the British Council online resources? So just put them in the chat. Francis is saying environment. Yes. Put your thoughts in the chat. Where do we find the content for our assessments and feedback? From articles, very good. And Nuru, thank you, Nuru, for that. Resource persons, thank you. Emmanuel from the blogs, thank you. Let us see a few suggestions. Next slide. Very good, YouTube.
And yeah.
So we can find some of the content in the articles. If you go to the website that I shared, there are so many articles that can help you with the topic that you've been undertaking, assessment and feedback. There are various magazines written by scholars, ELT journals, and so forth. Videos recorded, you've been doing and then recording and even sharing our recordings. You can get more content and even other videos that were recorded in the online resources. If you go to the website, you'll see them. And teaching knowledge database, publications, people have said about that, webinars, webinar recordings, and so on. That is where we can get our content. Next slide. So effective collaboration strategies. What kind of strategies can we use to collaborate effectively? So you can put your ideas in the chat. You can look at the pictures that we have, and then you can find out what do you think they are doing, the teachers, the students, what kind of strategies are they using? Jane, can you read what they are sharing? From the chat, Jane?
Yeah, we have. Am I audible? I think at some point I got kicked out. Am I audible, Chair?
Yes, very
Okay,
much.
thank you. So we have Nuru says discussions, projects. Catherine adds discussion strategies. Irene says holding seat in conferences. And Francisca says doing research.
You? Yeah, Paulo Ching says discussions. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you so much, In.
Yes. Yeah, Paul, welcome. For more information, Paul was my student. I taught him at Agoro, but now he's a teacher like me. He replaced me. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, when I see you there, I'm happy because my replacement is there.
Yeah, so great.
Collaborative online research. Catherine. Yeah. Next slide so that we can see a few suggestions that we have. Yes, the suggestions that we have for effective collaboration, co-designing assessments. I believe, colleagues, we can work with other colleagues to create standardized tests. I hope you have been doing that in school, quizzes and rubrics. those of us who have been marking, you can see the whatever how we normally coordinate the marking schemes and the rest. So that's an idea of collaboration. You can do that also in school by co-designing assessments with colleagues and create rubrics when you are assessing your learners. Peer review and moderation. Review each other's assessments to ensure quality because the exam must be standardized. Through workshops, I have seen a number of workshops and webinars organized by teachers from various regions. Thank you very much for that, the teachers. At least each and every county I've seen workshops organized. We are happy about that. You can also use British Council webinars to learn new methods together. Then online communities, engage in forums, like Isaac said, blogs, discussion groups. Like now we are using the online, we are engaged in our forum, the online platform, and we have quite a number. Thank you very much for that. Next slide. So how do we implement best feedback practices? We have talked about assessment. How about feedback? Jane can, or not Jane, can somebody read what we have on the screen? Apart from Jane, who is ready? I just unmute and read for us. Who is ready to unmute and read for us what we have on the screen? Yes?
I can. Implementing best feedback practices, timely and constructive feedback, ensure feedback is prompt and specific. Use of technology, leverage British Council digital tools for automated feedback, encouraging student reflection, train students to self-assess their work. Please write more suggestions in the chat.
Thank you, Irene, for that. There's somebody who has a problem with viewing the screen. Emmanuel, are you able now to see the screen? Emmanuel, as Rukia works on that. Emmanuel? Yes, thank you very much. Can you now write more suggestions or you can unmute and comment on the ones that we have on the screen? Best feedback practices. What kind of feedback? How do you assess feedback after doing assessment? Well, which are some of the best feedback practices you practice in your context? You can share in the chat or you can unmute and say something. Yes, thank you. Martin, no, it was not Emmanuel, Martin. Martin Tosh. I hope I've pronounced your name correctly. Thank you, Martin. Yes, who can comment on how to implement best feedback practices? Irene
We have a
says, yes, read.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jen.
Isaac says recorded feedback, then sharing with learners. Then Irene says peer assessment and feedback.
Yes, thank you. So the other time we met in Mombasa, we went through ChatGPT. The second one, use of technology, leveraging British Council digital tools for automated feedback. Can somebody share? Maybe somebody who has used that to share. Jen, as you read more suggestions.
Yeah. So Irene adds embracing it as a common practice across institutions. And then Paul Ochieng adds, I agree that feedback should be prompt so that it serves the purpose.
More suggestions? Okay. We move to the next slide for the sake of time. Yes, thank you very much. I think that was an overview of what we wanted to do. And as I said, today our webinar will be more of getting success stories from our colleagues who have been involved in this project. So at this juncture, let me hand over to my colleague Constance to continue from there. And Constance, are you there? Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, my colleagues. I hope you are well, enjoying your half term. I know most of us are happy. Teachers are usually happy when they get a break away from the tedious work. So as we continue with our topic of assessment, even I believe some of us have scripts with us. We have carried them home to mark. We had given our students some assessment and we are marking, and somebody stated somewhere feedback, very important. So as we go back, we have to go back with the feedback and explain to our learners where they went wrong and what they should have done. So allow me to welcome colleagues from different chapters to give us their testimonials on how they conducted the assessment and the feedback using the British Council resources. So we always say you begin from home. I would wish to call upon Coastal chapter members, maybe to mention Noor. If you are present, you can take us through, and any other member of the Coastal chapter. Welcome.
Can we give
Thank
them
you,
5 minutes?
Constance.
5 minutes each for each chapter.
Okay, thank you, Constance and the chairman. Good evening, colleagues. And I'm going to take you through how I've used British Council resources in assessments and feedback. And I'm going to mention two ways. One, I think I benefited most from a webinar that was facilitated by, I think it was Dr. Antonin, on selecting appropriate methodology, whereby we looked at knowing the subject and teaching knowledge database. So from that webinar and those are British Council resources, I got to understand contextualized grammar, which is putting language items into a meaningful and real context, rather than teaching students grammar from the perspective of rules. Because okay, initially I used to teach grammar by presenting the rules and then the examples, which was a deductive approach. But in that webinar and the British Council resources, I got to understand the inductive approach and also contextualized grammar. So it has changed my teaching of grammar and assessing as well. So like, for example, during the webinar, we learned about the inductive approach, which starts with examples and then asks learners to find rules, and which I have applied in teaching and assessing my learners. For example, this year when schools reopened with my Form 2 class, I was teaching simple past tense. And since it was the beginning of the year, I selected 5 students, and then we had a game of 2 truths and a lie, where the 5 students were to each give 3 sentences about things that they did over the holiday. So 2 of them should be true and 1 lie. So the task was for the other students to identify the lie. So as much as it was a game and they enjoyed figuring out the lie, but what they didn't realize is that they were constructing sentences in the past tense. So I wrote some of the sentences on the board, and then they identified the verbs. And from the verbs identified, we now, I use the
inductive approach, whereby we selected the verbs in the past tense. And from there, we developed the rule of forming past tense. That is, we add ed to regular verbs. As for the irregular verbs that we identified, we looked at the different ways of forming simple past tense. So in that case, I believe I combined both contextualized grammar and the inductive approach, because they constructed sentences about things which they did over the holiday, and then they discovered the rules by themselves, which was very easy when it came to the gap filling exercise. Because after we came up with the rule, I gave them a gap filling exercise to change verbs into simple past tense, and they performed very well. I also benefited from teaching resources from teachingenglish.org.uk. There is a lesson plan I downloaded. It's called Our Family Footprint, which I use to in a reading lesson. In a previous lesson, we had read a passage on global warming. So the following week, we did another passage on our family footprint. That is how families contribute to global warming. So the lesson that I downloaded from the British Council resources was meant for a 70-minute lesson, but I adjusted it to fit my 40-minute lesson. So I put them in groups. They discussed how families contribute to global warming. I then gave them a passage, because the main focus in that lesson plan was for students to answer questions on environmental degradation and global warming. So I gave them a passage so that to test or to assess the understanding of global warming and environmental degradation. And so they answered the questions in groups. We marked during class time. And then apart from the comprehension questions, I also picked a few vocabularies. I think they were 5. And I assigned each group a vocabulary. I have a small class size. Normally my class has around 30 students. So that makes it around 6 groups. So I think there were 6 vocabularies. And then in a game of charade, like one member from every group acted out the word, and then the other groups tried to guess the word. So it was very engaging, because they tried to figure out the meaning of the words through a game. So the person would stand in front of the class, act out the word, and then the others would try to figure out which word it was. So finally, when they were done with identifying the vocabulary, as for their homework, I asked them to use the vocabulary that they learned to construct sentences of their own, which they did very well, because I think it was easier to understand the meaning of a word or the meaning of the vocabulary from the way it was acted out, rather than the traditional way where we normally just use a dictionary for them to get the meaning. So from the assessment that I gave them, because I asked them to construct sentences, when I marked them, I found that most of them got or wrote, they used the vocabularies appropriately in their sentences. So I believe they got the meaning of the words. So that is what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nuru. What a comprehensive feedback. Employing the contextualized grammar method, what we call teaching from known to unknown. I wish the lesson the appraiser was with you in your respective classes. Section of creativity, innovation and creativity. You should score all the marks. Great, thank you very much, Nuru. Okay, maybe we have another member from Nairobi chapter to also share with us how he or she approached the assessment and feedback in his or her respective classes. Nairobi chapter, any member, most welcome. Or if
Yeah, we have members from Nairobi chapter. Emmanuel, we have Lillian, we have Naomi. Think that was an amazing lesson, Nuru. I could already visualize how it was.
Hello.
Interesting. Welcome, Emmanuel.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, we can hear you, Emmanuel.
hello, Emmanuel.
Okay. Yeah, I had a slight challenge, but I'm back, and I have also greatly benefited from the resources from the British Council, and over the period, especially after the events in Mombasa, and we were able to share a few ideas about how each chapter had made some implementation on the same or on technology in their classes. It really spoke to me, and I have tried to embrace the same in my classes. So this time around in class, I teach grade 9 English, and I was teaching them on the paragraph writing, that is the paragraph structure, and how to write a proper paragraph. And there were several resources that I was able to use. I wanted to come up with a gamified methodology, and I eventually I landed on the use of Kahoot, and tried to customize it to use in the teaching of the same. So firstly, there was an article. I used an article from the British Council, and the article was about an ex-footballer from the teachingenglish.org.uk. I was able to project the story, just the first two paragraphs from the story to, I projected it to the wall, and the learners were able to read, and we tried to talk about or explain what kind of information was being passed. So it helped really, it was very instrumental in demonstrating how a paragraph structure should look like. It talked about, we were able to identify the topic sentence, the supporting details, and the conclusion, and also how all that comes together, especially with the use of conjunctions in building the paragraph. Also, there was a blog article about cooking up clear communication, which is also it also talked about how to write a paragraph structure. It talked about there was a visual representation of how to write a proper structure. If I can share my screen just for a minute, let me try. Oh, sorry. I am not able to share my screen. I think my laptop is going off. It will take a while. But when you go to, I have, probably I will share the link to the group chat. You can go to it, and you can look at the idea around building a paragraph, and how to start from the topic sentence down to where we have the conclusion. Then we were able to go into pairs, and the learners were able to write on their own a few paragraphs. Just, I think for every group, each of them wrote one paragraph, and then we were able to share through the peer assessment, also a tool by the British Council. There was a structure that I borrowed from the British Council, and the learners were able to talk about how different groups have built their own structures, and we gave a thumbs up for those that did well, and the rest we encouraged them to write better paragraphs. Finally, we moved on to Kahoot, and the learners at this point, they were now getting to the climax of the lesson. It was a very exciting experience. All the learners were able to have to use tablet, and through Kahoot, I customized the game, and we played. This was very effective because it gave instant feedback. If it talked about, there was a few questions, if I can mention a few. One of them was, what is the name given to the first sentence, or what is the purpose of the first sentence? The learner was supposed to talk about it, to give an answer, to introduce the main idea or the main topic of what that paragraph is supposed to talk about. Also, the use of conjunctions came up about, and as we went on, it was we did about 15 questions, all about paragraph writing. All these learners were able to answer them, different paces, but all of them were able to get them right. So at the end of the lesson, I reviewed everything about where we had made mistakes, and what to watch out for as we write the paragraphs. For the exit ticket, each of them was to write a small paragraph about what they love about English. And they were very, very creative and inspiring too. Some of them mentioned the teacher, and it's somehow it was it's an exciting thing, an encouraging thing for a teacher when you hear the learners enjoy the lesson because of the same. So I think up to that point, I was able to achieve the assessment of the paragraph writing, and as of now, the learners are able to write proper paragraphs thanks to the British Council resources.
Thank you, Emmanuel. That was marvelous. You employed the timely and constructive feedback when using Kahoot. You also used technology when you are showcasing the two paragraphs. That was great. We really appreciate your effort. Okay, let me call upon a representative from Nakuru chapter. Kindly be brief. Time is not on our side. So mention the basic that you did. Nakuru chapter, you are most welcome. Any member from Nakuru chapter? Okay, maybe we can move to Kisumu chapter. Any member from Kisumu chapter? Then Siaya chapter. Kindly.
There's a comment there, the comment section from Catherine, giving suggestions of members from Nakuru chapter. Anyone who is confident enough can share the experience. And as we watch out on the time too, anyone, you can also write on the chat if you have a problem with the mic. Thank you so much, Emmanuel. That was a very interesting lesson for sure. And the learners, I bet, really enjoyed. It was interesting listening to how the lesson, you developed that lesson. Yes, and I have picked a few things that definitely I can do with my class. Thank you so much for sharing. Anyone from Kisumu, Siaya chapter, Nakuru chapter is welcome.
Maybe I say something.
Yes, thank you, Robert.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead, Rogers.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. Through the British Council website that we were given, I've been able to get short stories. One of the short stories that I got there was The Long Journey Home. It is by by one Sophie Smiley. He's a UK teacher, and he writes storybooks for children. So at Form 4, our students are expected to learn some short stories. So I was not getting the best approach for it. So when I went to the British Council website, I found The Long Journey Home, a very interesting story. One, they were using pictures to tell the story. It's a picture story. So I used my projector to display, and then the students were able to tell the story from the pictures that they were seeing. So that one aroused their interest when it came to reading, because the pictures would be posted as I was displaying them. They would see, and then they would tell the story up to the end. So now when we went to the one that is now offered in our curriculum, it was easier for them now to relate, because at the beginning of each and every short story that we are doing, there's normally a picture. So they were able to tell, this is the story, and then they're able to relate with what is really going to happen there. So that has helped me a lot in terms of improving their reading on their own. And even now, when I gave an exam on or an assessment on how to write a synopsis, because I also got a very good synopsis for the same story in the British Council website. So when I told them about, when I gave them an exam about writing synopsis, I got very good feedback from the students. So I must appreciate that the website has a lot that I have still not explored, but so far it has really impacted positively in terms of teaching, learning, assessment, and feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Rogers. That was great. Short stories. In fact, most of us are teaching the short stories. As you have stated, the photos also play a major role in assisting the learners to understand the story. And then also the synopsis. We teach it in paper 1 for the functional writing. You never know with NEC. They can set anything. Thank you very much, Rogers. So we continue.
Hello.
Yes, Catherine, go ahead.
Yeah, I think most have been said. I've done it this time. I've done composition writing and answering closest questions. So I think because the composition has been talking about, I can talk about using the resources to teach learners on how they can answer and also revise the closest question. So I was teaching them on how to revise, and I told them that they can find, they're supposed to read the current affairs or the current issues, emerging issues from newspapers, and also passages from the course books from Form 1 to Form 4. That's where the closest passage is being taken from. So we did it practical. As we were following the steps, I told them that they're supposed to read the closest before answering anything for them to understand the topic being talked about in that passage. And then now to follow sentence per sentence without answering the blank space, for them to learn what part of space, part of speech supposed to be used for blank space, for the whole sentence to make sense. So we did that practical, as I told them that in our clauses, all areas of grammar are being tested, whereby we have all parts of speech, one vocabulary from a current emerging issue, and we did that practical by using Chat GPT AI. We took a paragraph from the textbook, posted in Chat GPT, and we asked the AI to form the clauses for us with the blank spaces, and it picked the areas that I was explaining to them, so that now we went through each answer, and we found out that there was a noun, there was a verb, there was an article, there was all the parts of speech in all the answers. They were presented in the answers, and there was a vocabulary that concerns the topic of the passage from the emerging issue in the country. So in that case, they got to learn that it might not repeat itself in the other blank spaces. So we learned on how to answer and how to revise. And I think they're good. In my class, a Form 3 class, I'm able to get those who score 10 out of 10 in classes, those who score 9. The least I think I had so far in the previous exam was 5 out of 10, which was a minimum number for my class. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. That was great. In fact, you tackled a very sensitive area. Close tests. Usually we have a challenge with close tests with our learners. Scoring even above 6 is usually a challenge. Any other member to share?
As we wait for someone, Constance, there's someone who has written something on the chat box. Lillian, who says, my lesson was on dilemma stories in Form 3. I picked an article from British Council resources and obtained on ethical shopping and a worksheet for learners to share the dilemmas they have faced when purchasing items and the factors they consider. It was a very engaging lesson. My learners provided constructive feedback on the importance of ethics when they shop. The article on consumer power provided many moral shopping dilemmas. Some learners said that when shopping, they consider brand, reputation, and others said they consider impact on the environment, and it sparked a great debate. Thank you so much, Lillian.
Thank you, Lillian. That was also great. Dilemma. We also teach learners dilemma narratives. And when they have information about dilemma, they are well equipped. Thank you.
We have a comment from Martin who says, I didn't attend the session, but I have been incorporating the resources and AI in my grade 9 class, and it has really enhanced my teaching. Thank you. Martin, you can state some of the things that you have benefited, how your class has improved since you started using the resources. Thank you. Yeah. I think Constance.
Okay. Maybe I would wish to thank those who have shared with us their experiences. That was great. We really appreciate you. maybe how we wish we could be in your classrooms, or maybe you could have video recorded your lessons to share with us. Thank you very much.
Maybe I
Now,
say something, Bunny.
eh,
Yes, I wanted to say that nowadays I'm glad when an exam is shared online, I don't bother asking for a marking scheme because I'm busy. I take a question, one question, I post it in AI, and I ask AI to consult with me and give me the answers. And it gives the answers. I go through the answers and edit to match what I wanted. It makes my work easy, so I don't bother asking people for their marking schemes. So long as there is a question, I'm done. Thank you.
thank you, Catherine. I'm also with you. I usually do the same. That is great. It has made our work easier. Maybe we could share the challenges. Let us share the challenges we have encountered when we are doing the assessment and the feedback using the British resources, or maybe generally in the classrooms. Kindly, you can place your information on the chat, or you can unmute and give us any challenge that you faced or you came across.
Thank you, Constance. Probably Rukia can share the screen. The last slide, Rukia.
We have a comment from the chats. Thank you, Okwiri, for saying thank you for the deliberations. Yes, I agree. They were very rich. Then Rogers says British Council resources is purely online and therefore requires stable internet connectivity. Then we have Catherine adds lack of the devices for all students, time factors for the practicals. Then we have Francisca who says the biggest challenge that I have faced is network. I guess it's in terms of internet connectivity devices, limited devices, and also time to do the practicals. We have Rogers who says the materials in the website requires to be customized to fit each classroom scenario.
Thank you for the positive feedback. As we have stated there, time constraints, sometimes it is a challenge. As somebody had stated from the webinar, the lesson was to take maybe 70 or 90 minutes, but our lessons usually have 40 minutes. So time sometimes is a challenge. And then resistance to collaboration. Sometimes you may have colleagues who are not willing maybe to come together and put your heads together, moderating the marking scheme or marking through conveyor. So it also becomes a challenge. And then, as most of us have stated, lack of digital literacy. Some of us also need to be empowered or taken through some courses for them to have the know-how of the digital literacy. And finally, the internet, the major challenge. And then we have solutions. Maybe you schedule for peer discussions. You can have colleagues and then they discuss, even students, and see how you can work out. And then training sessions on online tools, what we can do as the program officers or officials, we have trainings. And then step by step, we learn the new strategies. Today you learn this, tomorrow that, the other day, and then at the end of it, you are well versed. I also wish maybe to bring to your attention that we also have larger collaborative teams, like we have 2 large examining bodies where we do national exams. We have the elite group and we also have the Tenegent group. When you join these groups, maybe through their exams, because they set exams, that is evaluation, assessment, and they give us feedback. They have sessions on where the students went wrong, the challenges we face. They may also assist us in our delivery in our specific classes. Otherwise, I wish to thank all of you for sacrificing your ample time, sparing your half term and joining us in this session. I may take the baton back to the chair and wind up for us. Chair,
Thank you
please.
very much, Constance, for that wonderful presentation. Colleagues, just stay on for 1 minute, and then I'll ask Rukia probably to have a very short survey, a poll. We want to know your view about the project and way forward. Rukia, please.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, colleagues. As we've shared, we come to the end of this particular session, series of webinars with the British Council project. So it would be very important for us to get your feedback so that we know how to proceed forward in case you have to continue this project, or the things that maybe you would want to see in the future. So we would really appreciate this 1 minute poll. I'm going to launch it in a second. Can everyone see my poll?
Yes, Rukia.
Yeah, kindly. You can participate. And once we are done, I'm going to once we get to 100%, I'll end the poll.
Si kuna mela nimepika. Mayai utapika kesho.
We are almost getting to 100%. Is there anyone who hasn't filled out the poll? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for participating in the poll. If you haven't, please do so. Catherine, you've said you haven't participated, please do so before I end. Okay, thank you. Thank you. You can see my screen.
Nuru can't see.
Oh, sorry. I don't know what I can do. Probably she needs to go out and come back, but she can give us her feedback. We're going to share a Google form also. Later, she can give us her feedback there. Same as Hadija. So I don't know if you can see the results. The results.
Yeah, we can see the results.
Yeah. Chair, you can read for us the results.
Yes, untitled questions, single choice. So would you like to continue with the project? 93% have said yes, they want to continue with the project. Number 2, how conversant have you become navigating the BC online resources? 53% say can do better with the support, which means they still need the support. That's very good. Which areas would you like, number 3, to like covered in the future? The most people are saying continue with assessment and feedback. 13% saying understanding my learners. So which means most of us say we should continue and maybe improve